10 rock songs that were banned from radio after September 11th. Within days of the 9/11 attacks,
believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
Radio conglomerate Clear Channel Communications, the largest owner of terrestrial radio stations in the country, sent out an internal memo with songs labeled too lyrically questionable or insensitive to play on the radio. While the memorandum wasn't an outright ban on the songs, DJs were urged to temporarily pull down almost 164 songs from rotation in reaction to the attacks. Songs referencing airplanes like Leavin' on a Jet Plane and Benny and the Jets, or those that reference the Middle East such as Walk Like an Egyptian and Rock the Casbah were on the list. Here are 10 iconic rock songs that were caught in the radio ban. Travelin' Band by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Creedence Clearwater Revival was pure Americana. Their blue-collar rock had been a radio staple for decades. But in September 2001, their 1970 hit Travelin' Band was banned from the airwaves. The reason? The opening line, 737 coming out of the sky. In the aftermath of hijacked commercial jets being used as weapons, any mention of planes was too raw. Radio programmers pulled the track from rotation across the country. It didn't matter the Travelin' Band was about the joy of touring. The mere mention of aircraft was enough to silence one of rock's most beloved anthems. A band that had soundtracked American soldiers in Vietnam was suddenly deemed too dangerous for American radio. American Pie by Don McLean. Don McLean's 1971 epic seemed like an unlikely candidate for censorship. It was, after all, a celebration of American music history. But American Pie made Clear Channel's banned list. The song didn't mention planes or attacks, but radio executives understood something crucial. McLean's masterpiece was about tragedy and loss. The song chronicled the plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, making it a meditation on how sudden death can shatter innocence. The parallels were uncomfortably clear. Just as McLean sang about America losing its innocence on the day the music died, the nation was now grappling with its own devastating loss. Lines about bad news, mourning, and a country forever changed hit too close to home. Live and Let Die by Paul McCartney and Wings. Paul McCartney's 1973 James Bond theme didn't reference planes, buildings, or politics. Yet Live and Let Die appeared on Clear Channel's list. The song's central message about an ever-changing world struck programmers as dangerously relevant. Americans were constantly being told their world had fundamentally changed. The song's philosophical acceptance of mortality felt too close to the national conversation about how America had been forever altered. McCartney's explosive sound effects and violent imagery didn't help. Radio stations decided the former Beatles spy thriller anthem was too intense for audiences still processing real violence in television. Some Heads Are Gonna Roll by Judas Priest. Judas Priest's 1984 track took on new significance in post-9/11 America. The song was included on Clear Channel's banned list, joining dozens of other metal tracks deemed too violent. The title alone triggered concerns. In an era where beheadings had become terrorist propaganda, any reference to violence felt unacceptably provocative. The track's themes of retribution, while fictional, seemed too close to calls for vengeance echoing across America. Multiple heavy metal tracks were discouraged from radio play. Programmers worried aggressive music might inflame tensions or promote violent responses. A British metal band singing about fictional conflicts was silenced while political leaders made real threats of war. Highway to Hell by AC/DC. AC/DC's 1979 anthem had always been about living on the edge. But in September 2001, its title took on a chilling new meaning. Highway to Hell was among multiple AC/DC tracks discouraged from radio play. The Australian rockers never intended their highway metaphor as anything more than rock and roll bravado. But in the aftermath of attacks many described in apocalyptic terms, any reference to hell felt uncomfortably literal. The AC/DC bands extended beyond just this track. TNT and Hell's Bells were also discouraged. For a band that had soundtracked American rock culture for decades, the silence was deafening. Rock the Casbah by The Clash. The Clash's 1982 hit was tailor-made for post-9/11 censorship. Songs referencing the Middle East were considered inappropriate, and Rock the Casbah fit perfectly. The British punk legends had written the song as satire about cultural conflicts between Islamic authorities and Western music. But in September 2001, any song mentioning the Middle East became politically explosive. The ban was particularly unfortunate, given the song's actual message, a celebration of music's power to overcome cultural barriers. The Clash had championed cultural understanding, but their Arabic references made them radioactive. Being silenced for an inclusive message was bitter irony. Fade to Black by Metallica. Metallica's 1984 ballad dealt explicitly with depression and suicidal ideation. In post-9/11 America, radio programmers wanted to avoid precisely these themes. Radio executives worried songs exploring dark emotional territory might push already fragile listeners over the edge. The track's haunting melody and James Hetfield's anguished vocals created an atmosphere of despair programmers deemed unsuitable. The band highlighted broader concerns about metal's emotional intensity. While country and pop provided comfort and patriotic reassurance, metal's willingness to explore darkness made it suspect. Suicide Solution by Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath's 1970 track had weathered decades of controversy, with critics claiming it encouraged suicide. 9/11 gave it new notoriety as radio programmers worried about content promoting self-harm. Ozzy Osbourne had repeatedly explained the track was actually a warning about alcohol abuse. The Suicide Solution referred to drinking oneself to death.
If you have any drugs or any alcohol, give me some.
But nuanced interpretation wasn't a luxury programmers could afford after national trauma. In a climate where mental health professionals warned about increased suicide risk, any song with such an explosive title felt dangerous. The band that had given voice to society's darker impulses was suddenly too dark for a society in mourning. Jump by Van Halen. Van Halen's Jump might have been the most surprising inclusion on Clear Channel's list. The upbeat 1984 hit was banned despite being one of rock's most positive anthems. The song's title was its downfall. In the aftermath of attacks where people jumped from burning buildings, the word jump, no matter how innocent, felt traumatic. Radio programmers couldn't risk triggering memories with an unfortunate word choice. Van Halen had written Jump as an anthem of empowerment. A song about taking positive risks was silenced because its central metaphor had been corrupted by a real-world tragedy. Another one bites the dust by Queen. Queen's 1980 hit topped our list because it represented everything radio programmers feared. Another One Bites the Dust was banned as its celebration of defeat felt impossibly cruel after mass casualties. The song's driving beat and Freddie Mercury's commanding vocals had made it a rock classic, but its title became toxic overnight. In a nation counting the dead, any reference to people biting the dust felt like celebrating death itself. The band extended beyond the obvious title. The song's swagger, its aggressive confidence, its almost gleeful tone, all seemed wrong for a nation in grief. Queen's theatrical bombast suddenly seemed too large for a world made smaller by tragedy. The aftermath? The Clear Channel list was never an outright ban, but suggestions for stations. Yet its impact was profound. Within weeks, the recommendations had created an unofficial but comprehensive censorship system affecting millions of listeners. Many songs eventually returned to regular rotation, but their temporary absence marked a unique moment in American cultural history. For the first time since wartime, popular music faced widespread, systematic censorship based on national security concerns. These bans remind us how fragile artistic expression can be in times of crisis. Songs were considered dangerous precisely because they were powerful enough to influence emotions and actions. In trying to protect listeners, radio executives inadvertently testified to rock and roll's enduring power to move and transform. Which of these bans surprised you most? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more untold stories from rock history.